A good Erev Shabbos. They say that we stay in better health emotionally and mentally as well as even physically if we stay positive and look at the good side of things rather than the opposite. This is a challenge in most times, even more so in our times when the news is not so bright. But still, it's a good rule of thumb to try to look at things in a positive way rather than rolling the eyes kind of way. Okay, fine, rolling my eyes in sarcasm or annoyance or scorn. So in years past, I used to roll my eyes when the day after Purim, I would go into Sobeys and they'd be moving everything around in the whole store to make place for the Pesach goods to go on the shelves. Now it's the week before Purim, and instead of saying, hey, give Purim its due, let's get through the Hamantash and candy and little bottles of grape juice, because the LCBO won't sell us the little airplane bottles of booze I asked. They're afraid of shoplifters. So instead of that, now I say, look at your nation, the Jewish people, Mika Amcha Yisrael. They're so eager to start preparing for Pesach, they can't even wait till after Purim. This year, first time ever, I bought Pesach goods the day before Purim, because I love paying $6 for a box of powdered sugar. It gives me a good feeling. There go my eyes rolling again. Can you see them? And the Pesach products themselves, I used to get annoyed, irritated. What do we need Pesach Dika waffle syrup for? Who on earth is eating waffles? Can't you go 8 days without pancakes? For goodness sakes. Well, first of all, I tried to adjust my attitude. The waffle syrup is not for me. It's not for us. But for people, again, not us, but certainly we know people who say, how do you expect me to keep kosher? How will I get waffle syrup for Pesach? We can now say, ta-da! Here's your Pesach Dika waffle syrup. Here's your soy protein or processed fish that's texturized and flavored to taste just like whatever treifa meat or seafood you want to put on your burger and your sushi. No problem. You could be kosher and have it all. Some maybe more than all. Someone suggested last week that there might be more kosher Pesach products now than there are kosher for the rest of the year products. Okay, wonderful. Live it up. Second of all, our kids developed an amazing recipe for waffles made out of almond flour. So now, here's me buying a Pesach Dika waffle iron. What a life. Even if you did not go to Sobeys or Costco in the last 3 weeks, or yet, you should know that Pesach is coming through. You would know it. In the days before phones and emails and printing up shul bulletins, you knew that Pesach was on the way. First of all, it would start to snow less. That should be happening any day now. And also from the time leading up till Purim until the time leading up to Pesach, there's something very special happening in the shuls. So, in the olden days, if you came to shul or if you talked to someone who went to shul, you knew that Pesach was on the way because of the 4 special Shabbosos that heralded the season. Today is the 4th of those 4. Let's review quickly. Each of these 4 special Shabbosos, that's how they're called in the books, the Arba Parshiot, 4 special readings. Each week we take out an additional Sefer Torah and read on a theme that pertains to the time of the year, in addition to the weekly Sedra. There's a different Haftorah that goes with each of the 4 weeks, and there's an old minhag to have 2 kugels at the Kiddush on the weeks of the 4 Parshas. So even if you don't make it to Shul, you'd still get your 2 kugels, so you'd know. The Shabbos before Adar, we had Shabbos Shkalim, the Shabbos of the shekels. That's to remind everyone to get ready to donate a half a shekel per family to the communal fund in the temple that was used to fund the offerings all year round. That was supposed to be done by Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so it gave you a little bit of lead time to prepare. We did it at KST on Erev Purim with those silver $50 that we had here in Shul. That was the first. Then the second, the Shabbos before Purim, was Shabbat Zachor, the Shabbos of remembrance. What were we remembering? Forget. Just kidding. We were remembering the eternal adversary of the Jewish people, Amalek, who attacked us on the way out of Egypt, whose grandchildren made war in the times of King Saul, according to the Haftorah we read that Shabbos, and whose great-grandchildren, namely Haman, sought our destruction in Queen Esther's times. You could use your imagination to name their great-great-great-grandchildren who had the same plan in the 20th century and even up to our days. Some people never give up. Okay, then last Shabbos, Parshas Para, we read about the purification and cleansing. So in the weeks to come, we'll do some purifying and cleansing of our kitchens, our cars, our dining room tables, and anything that stands in our way, anything that ever had chametz on it. And since everything that takes place in the physical realm has a counterpart in the spiritual, we'll feel ourselves being cleansed spiritually as well, hopefully. The sentiment is that in the month of Elul, leading up to Rosh Hashanah, we do teshuvah out of awe, leading up to the days of awe. While in Adar and Nisan now, leading up to Pesach, we do teshuvah out of love, out of joy for being Jewish and being close to God in these special ways. Try to keep that in mind when you're scrubbing the kitchen and paying the grocery bill. This Shabbos is the fourth and culminating week, reading of the four Shabbosos, the four Parshias. Parshat Hachodesh. Hachodesh hazeh lachem rosh chadashim, rishon hu lachem lechodshei hashana. This month will be for you the head of the months, the first of the months of the year for you. We always read this special portion on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, or the Shabbos prior to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when we bless it. And indeed, in Shul this Shabbos, we'll bless the new month, which will occur next Thursday. We'll announce just before the blessing that the reappearance of the moon in Yerushalayim, the eternal and undivided capital of Israel, will take place Wednesday morning at 1:24 a.m. and 12 parts. Die Moiled wird sein Mittwoch in der Früh, 24 Minuten nach einer Zeger mit 12 Chalakim. The special Torah reading that we're going to read from the second Sefer Torah this week contains the instructions to establish a Jewish calendar itself, with the first month being Nisan in the spring, which, as we say, should begin any day now, and to celebrate Pesach in the middle of that month. There's the Paschal offering, the Korban Pesach. There's decorating the doorposts and the lintels of the house during the 10th plague, so we would be spared in Egypt. There's the unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Interesting note, this mitzvah was given before we ever left Egypt even. There's 7 days of no chametz and eating matzah, cleaning the chametz out of our homes, and many more particulars in that passage, chapter 12 of Chumash Shemois, the book of Exodus. Now, fascinating note, especially for those who are fascinated by these kinds of things, the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, or as they used to call it, the Palestinian Talmud. I don't know why that term fell out of favor. And this is distinct from the Babylonian Talmud, which is the one that's more commonly studied. It says that the last two of the special Parshios, Para and Hachodesh, are always read one right after the other on two subsequent Shabbatot. The first two Parshias, Shkalim and Zachor, or between the second and the third, there is or there could be a break of a Shabbat in between, depending on the calendar. But these last two are always read one right after the other, last week and this week. Says Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina, back in the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, that's all according to Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina. In the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, Rabbi Levi says that's true, and it's exactly the same story as the 4 cups of wine at the Seder. You're allowed to drink all the wine you like between the first and the second cup, and between the second and the third cups, but not between the third and the fourth cups. They have to follow immediately one after the other with no interruption other than the words of the Haggadah. Okay, a lovely drasha. Is there something more beneath the surface to pique our curiosity? There usually is. So let's think about it for a minute. The third and fourth Parshios, Parsha of purification last week, and Parshas HaChodesh, of celebrating this week, really have to do one with the other. You could say that they're describing one event that has 2 component parts, and we read one part on one Shabbat and one part on the next Shabbat. Or you could say that they're 2 separate mitzvahs. So along these lines, Rabbi Chama in the Yerushalmi might be suggesting that they are part of the same mitzvah. So they go on 2 Shabbosos immediately adjacent one to another. Rabbi Levi might be read to say that they're 2 different mitzvahs, but they should be done as close together as possible. One week after another for the readings, and 1 cup after another. The fourth cup at the Seder, right after the third cup, with no other wine or coffee or tea or even macaroons. He doesn't mention macaroons, but I'm sure he meant it. No interruption of eating or drinking between the third and the fourth cup of wine. In a deeper sense, para, the reading last week about purification, is about transformation. talked about transforming the status of someone, namely us, from tameh to tahor. A person who's tameh in temple times was not supposed to bring the offering for Pesach. You had to make yourself tahor. Nowadays, we're not ready to bring the offering in the temple as it's supposed to be. Maybe this will be our year. But no matter what, we can still prepare ourselves. We can transform that part of ourselves that needs it to tahara, a spotless and pristine state of spiritual being, all spick and span, ready for Yom Tif. The special portion this week is of celebration. Once we're there already, we've already cleaned the kitchen as well as ourselves, once we're prepared and spotless and chametz free, we can celebrate and come close as we're supposed to be. That's how the Bnei Yisrael were when we went out of Egypt. We were like a newborn nation, like a newborn child, immaculate and pure and entirely righteous. And from our discussion about the proximity of these two parshas, just like the last 2 cups of wine at the Seder, we see that the 2 parts of the process are really closely linked, even intrinsically. The ability to transform is part and parcel of the ability to celebrate. Remember, the 3rd cup of wine is thanksgiving. It's over the benching, Birkat HaMazon, the grace after meals. And the 4th cup of Hallel is complete redemption. The ability to transform ourselves completely is an intrinsic and even necessary and essential prelude to being able to celebrate fully. In fact, in that sense, it even has a superior quality to it. Our Pesach celebration last year was wonderful, but incomplete. If you recall, we ate the Hillel sandwich with just the matzah and the maror, but no meat, no korban in between, no paschal offering, which is really, literally, the meat of the sandwich. So something was lacking from our celebration, even though we're used to it by now. It's been a couple of years. But nothing was lacking from our preparation, which we did completely and fully with nothing missing at all. And that is a beautiful thing. So may it be this year. May our preparation and transformation be complete in every sense and be rewarded with a full and complete celebration of Pesach as the Torah offers us, together with the entire Jewish people, happy and healthy, and living all together in our land in complete peace. That's peace with our neighbors, peace amongst each others, if you can imagine such a thing, and peace within ourselves. A good Shabbos, a guten Chodesh.